Hi, I'm back. I'm not dead. I'm back. Um, I decided not to film a video last month just because I didn't really get anything done. I still, even though it's been 2 months, I still haven't gotten a huge amount done. So, I just felt like I didn't really need to do a video last month. There was nothing to really show in it, so I just didn't do it. I've just been kind of going through a lot in the last few months, both in my life and just mentally. It's just kind of been a lot. I've had a lot of schoolwork. I haven't been doing that well, mostly because of my mental stuff. I just have not been motivated at all to do really anything. Um, and then there's been a lot of stuff at work too, and that's kind of over. Work's kind of calmed down, but just everything culminated in me not really stitching. I also had some issues with my nails. My thumbnail, I broke it really far down, and I had to wear a band-aid on my thumb basically constantly. And I can't stitch with a band-aid on my thumb. I can't. So, you know, that basically kind of started me just not stitching for a while, and then it just took me a while to get back into it. So, but I'm back, and I do have some progress. Not where I wanted it, but progress is progress. So I've worked on two. I will show you the one that I've gotten the least. I've barely gotten anything done on it. But I started working on Epic Pokemon again, and that's all I got done. That is it. Just that black. I didn't even finish the black, so not much at all. But I'll finish it eventually. And then this one, I'm not sure exactly how much I got done, honestly, because it is about 2 months worth, and there was a full 2 weeks in the middle where I just did not stitch at all. So I'm not sure exactly where it started. However, I do know that there's one thing on this now that is a little bit exciting. So the fairy dancer and kitten. You can see her face and her arm. So that is her arm right there. I cannot do that backwards. That's her arm right there. So that's cool that I'm starting to get into her more. And then a lot of this over here is gonna be white, which is kind of boring, but it is what it is. So my goals for December, finish that row. Just finish it. Get it done. And hey, if I finish page on Epic Pokemon too, great. Yo, baby. My goals for January, I'm not fully gonna get into them because beginning of the year, exciting. But I want to get to a place where I can start the Disney Princess, the Epic thing. I really want to start that. And I want to film that one. So I really need to figure out how I'm going to do that. But, yeah, fun. That's kind of all I have for stitching. I didn't buy anything. I haven't finished anything. That's all I got. Those are the only two I worked on. I really don't have much to talk about in stitching, unfortunately. However, in books, which I think I'm gonna start making my book portions completely separate videos. I've had a lot of people who like my stitching, and I've also had people comment that they really like the book part. So I'm going to separate it out and just make them separate videos. And because I got all the animals just wanting my attention. And yeah, so I'm going to go into my books now. I actually have a lot to talk about. I think I already filmed one thing. So there's one portion that I filmed like a month ago. So this is pre-recorded mostly because I have read a lot of books. So I wanted to get this part recorded before I finished even more and then couldn't even remember what I'd already finished. So today's, I think, November 9th. So these are like all the books I finished in October, and then I finished 2 so far this month. So I finished 3 for my poster here. Hopefully it'll be 4 by the end of the month. Actually 5 by the end of the month. So we'll see though. I'm not going to talk about what I'm currently doing until the very, very end of the month, because hopefully I'll have finished a bunch. So the first one I will talk about is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. I was not that into this book at all. It was just kind of boring. Nothing really happened. Like, nothing happened. The main character, whose name I can't even remember, and 2 other people are on a ship searching for this mysterious sea creature that's been attacking ships. And it turns out to be a submarine, the Nautilus. And they get taken into the Nautilus because their ship is destroyed by the Nautilus, and they meet Captain Nemo. The main character is like an marine biologist, I think. So he's just fascinated by everything. But they're basically trapped there, and they just travel around the world. And then they end up escaping and leaving. And that's the book. The majority of the book was them just traveling under the water and nothing really happening. So I just kind of found it boring. So, I don't know. Not for me. I don't have any plans to read any other Jules Verne books. I know a lot of them are very popular, like Around the World in 80 Days, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and there's probably others that I just can't even remember right now, but I didn't like this one, so I don't think I'm going to try any others. None of them are on my list, so the second one that I finished was A Circus of Brass and Bone. I did quite like this one. It's a alternate timeline of during the Civil War time. It's it's set after the Civil War, but it's during that time, where ether or ether, I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, is used for everything. It's used for all energy basically, and it's even used in these harnesses that people wear to make themselves stronger. And there's this, at the very, very beginning of the book, there's a horrible accident with some ether, or ether, I'm just gonna say ether, that basically creates a tidal wave of ether explosions all over the world. It's worse in America than it is in the rest of the world, but still, tons of people die, and it ends up affecting anything that is powered by ether. So even if you've survived and then you turn on an ether powered lamp and it will explode and kill you. That happened once or twice. And it is the beginning of it is just like, wow. It was really good though, and it mainly focuses on a traveling circus, which is why it's called Circus of Brass and Bone, and some of the like certain characters, so like the horse rider woman in it, the clown, and then they also have they just come from India, and they just picked up an ether-powered like bone elephant, because like you can basically have bone creatures that are powered by ether. It's freaky. And then the dude who runs the elephant isn't quite who he says he is. There's like a little bit of a mystery going on throughout the book. And they start in Boston, they end up in New York. The book ends in New York. So they don't get too far. But there's like bad stuff happening because apparently like it's mutating people and animals and making them go like feral, and it like ends with just a lot of stuff happening. I won't fully spoil it. So the only thing I'm really disappointed about, and this is by Abra S.W., I think is her name. Yeah. Abra S.W. And this is supposed to be part of a series, and I looked it up on Goodreads. I looked it up on Google as well, and I found a like prequel, but then I read the description of the prequel, and the prequel isn't actually a prequel. It's a part that's in the regular book, so it's not a prequel. It's just an excerpt from the book. And it was written in 2015, or it came out in 2015, and there's not a second one yet, and it's clearly set up to be a series, I think. Like, that's kind of how the impression that I got. So I'm a little disappointed that there's not a second book, but what you gonna do? I really liked it. I mean, there's no cliffhangers or anything, so if you still want to give it a shot, like, there's nothing like that. And it is free if you have Kindle Unlimited. That is how I got it. I just got it on Kindle Unlimited, so it is available there if you don't want to spend any money. The second book, or third book, is Robinson Crusoe. If you don't know what the story is, it's basically about a dude from England who's very unlucky when it comes to ships. He gets in more than one shipwreck. Like, you get in one, okay, maybe I'll get in a ship again. Get in two, just stop. Just stop. So, he, I was surprised at how much time took place in the book before he even got on that deserted island, where not even a majority of the book takes place. Like, I was surprised about that. I thought all of the book would basically be on that deserted island. He gets off of it like halfway through the book, and he gets onto it like, I don't know, not a quarter of the way through, like maybe a fifth of the way through the book. So it's not long. Like, he's on it for like 20 years, more than 20 years. But book-wise, he's not on it very long. But he starts in England. That's where he's born. He ends up in Brazil and makes a ton of money because he has a plantation there. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to go back home. And gets shipwrecked and ends up on an island and is alone for, I believe, 15 years? 12 or 15 years, something like that. And then this is where the white, hero complex, white savior complex part of the book comes into play. Which this book was written in like the 1600s. So, I mean, But the island that he's on is in the Caribbean, and it is frequented by cannibals who are not full-time cannibals. They only eat people who they've captured in war, as like a war celebration, and that's just their way of their ritual for celebrating war. And he kills them, and eating people bad, but it's their island. Leave them alone. They weren't hurting you. He does end up saving another savage, which I think the book alludes to this being them being from Trinidad and Tobago. I think it says that they're like Trinidadian. Not positive. So he saves one of them and like basically makes him his slave. He names him Friday because Friday was the day of the week that he saved him on. Like, no thought was put into this name. And it's just, he like converts him to Christianity, and it's just so problematic, but that's just how white people think, or thought at the time. Some people do still think that way. So that's his like only companion, and then there is the savages come again with a few Spaniards, and he saves them, and he can actually talk to them. Well, he teaches Friday English, so he can talk to him, but he can talk to them like right away, and learns that there's a bunch more Spaniards on another island that they can go get, because they now have canoes, because they basically slaughtered a bunch of natives. So they also saved Friday's father, which is a weird coincidence, but whatever. And so they leave. This is the part that was like really, dude? So the Spaniards all leave with Friday's father to go get the rest of the Spaniards and bring them back so they can basically like start a colony. Which, by the way, Robinson Crusoe, well off. He's been here for like 20 years. He has like herds of goats that he's tamed. He has crops of corn and barley. He can make his own bread. He's good. He's like 3 houses. Like, he's thriving. Basically the only thing he's missing is women. Like, that's the only thing missing from this equation. I don't think I would have left. But so while they're gone, a ship of Englishmen comes that has been mutinied, and he rescues the captain, and the captain's like, we'll take you as long as you, help us with the mutiny thing. So they end up rescuing all of the crew members who weren't part of the mutiny, and they deserted 3 of like the worst guys on the island. They left them there with some supplies, which I just and then went home with the Spaniards and Friday's father, not knowing what the hell's going on. They just left. They didn't even bother to wait. They could have waited. So they leave 3 possibly violent criminals just lying in wait for these Spaniards and Friday's father. And yeah. And then just sail back to England with Friday. Friday went with him. So they go back. I think he got married after he got back. I don't think he was married before. And has like kids and stuff, and I think his wife dies or something. I don't really remember. I was like skimming this part. I was so done with this book. And then he ends up going back. He's like, I want to go back. And I think it's been like 10 years at this point that he's been back in England or something like that. So he goes back, and he wants to go back to Brazil mostly because he still has the plantation there. Like he's like rich, but he's like, oh, let's stop off at my old island and see what's going on there. So he stops there, meets a Spaniard dude, finds out basically everything that's happened, which, like, the English dudes that they left there obviously were just dicks the entire time. And they ended up getting attacked more than once by the natives because the natives were finally like, hey, there's people on our island, which they're not on the island 24/7. They only come every once in a while to do the cannibalistic ritual. But they, kind of get clued into, hey, there's people on this island. Let's go get rid of them. Which, fair. And this is where I stopped reading the book. I don't care about what happens in the rest of it. I am considering this finished. I don't care at all. Like, literally over 100 pages was just the Spaniard explaining what had happened. At least 100 pages. That's when I quit. I was like, I don't care about what happens to these dudes. Like, this is not what I wanted. So, I gave up on it. Moving on. This is going to be a longer video. I read Water for Elephants. I really wanted to read it. I just wanted to read something else. I didn't intend to read this, and I was like, I wonder if it's on, available on Kindle or something. And it was available on Kindle Unlimited, so I was like, let's just read it. And I read it in, 2 days. It was so good. I've seen the movie already, and I knew that at least one change had been done. I knew that the ringmaster and August, the abusive husband, had been mushed together into one character for the movie, but in the book that they were 2 different people. And I actually liked it better than being 2 different people. It worked better, I think, in the book. Yeah, there were, obvious differences, but I think they followed the book pretty well for the movie. And it was just so good. It was so good. Like, the love story and just the aspect of the circus in the first place were really good. And then the end of the book is always, bittersweet because it's similar to the movie. So the movie, I think they only show Jacob as an old man in the very beginning and the end. But in the book, there's chapters interspersed throughout of him as an old man. So it's a little different. Most of the scenes with him as an old man are in a nursing home. And he doesn't get to the circus until the very end, and he goes because his kids forgot. And so it is kind of the same as in the movie. They didn't really change that. They just took out all of the nursing home scenes. And I did like that. It kind of took you out. And there is kind of a mystery because he keeps talking about his wife, but you don't know that it's Marlena until the end, kind of more towards the end. But obviously, since I'd already seen the movie, I knew that it was her. But yeah, it was really good. I would definitely recommend you give it a shot. It was very, very good. And there's no sex scenes or anything, so if you're not into that, then there's not any graphic sex scenes. They have sex once, but it doesn't describe it. So if you don't like filthy romances like that, don't worry. It's fairly clean. Alright, next is Mary Poppins. I still have not scratched this off of here because, okay, so I did get a comment in my last video saying that someone had been really interested in this and that they found the poster and bought it. And I will just say, if you are interested in it, it is called Top 100 Books, The Ultimate Collection by Enovati. And the only thing I don't like about it is that the scratching part of it is a little awful. It doesn't scratch all that well, so it does take a little bit of elbow grease, but not too much elbow grease or you will rip it. So yeah, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but I do really like it. I really like the little graphics that they have. Sometimes I'm like, how does that have anything to do with anything? But so I still have to get that Mary Poppins off of here, but we'll deal with that. So I've not seen the movie Mary Poppins probably since I was a kid. It's like, I think I've only seen it once. And I didn't really like it. I've seen the Mary Poppins Returns movie, the one with Emily Blunt. Again, like, not really for me. However, Saving Mr. Banks is amazing, and I love that movie so much. So, like, that's my preferred Mary Poppins movie. It's so good. It's so, like, sad, and I cried the first time I saw it. I think I cried the second time I saw it, too. Like, it's that part at the end where she's watching the movie is just, like, so emotional for me. And, like, I know she hated it. Like, she did. She just hated the movie in real life. She hated everything about the movie, which I kind of love, but because the movie wasn't really for me either. So the book, I did not know that the book was kind of like a bunch of stories put in together. Like, there's no, like, central story throughout the book. It's more like just a bunch of short stories put together. The only, like, running theme is that Mary Poppins at the beginning, she, shows up, and then lots of shenanigans happen in the middle, and then at the end she leaves. So yeah, and there are probably a few stories that I wasn't even really listening to. It's very short. I listened to this on audiobook. I think I have, like, basically the whole series on Audible. They have, like, the whole series for free on Audible if you are an Audible member. So I'm gonna do that. Any of these books that are part of a series are, like, the first book of a series, I'm going to read the whole series, because I don't like reading the first book of a series and then not finishing it unless I, like, really hate it. So, yeah. Really short. I think it was only 3 hours long, so you could do it in a day if you wanted to. Next up are books that I actually physically have. So the first one is, the second book that I got in Owl Crate, which I think I'm getting the 4th box soon, and I'm canceling it after that. If my last box was not good, the book was good. I've already read the book, but the box, like, everything in it was just trash. Really cheap. The box everything came in this one was not terrible. Like, I got some cool coasters and some other stuff, but I don't know, the last one was just, the October box was awful. And every single book is, like, a YA fantasy, and as much as I like those, like, it's not what I want to read every single time. I know, my kitten. So, this is Lake's Edge by Lyndall Clipstone. And, if you do get Owl Crate, yeah. Then every single book is, like, slightly different from the regular version. You get, like, a specialty book. So this is how it is. It's a hardcover book, but it doesn't have a dust jacket. This is just its cover, and it is, like, kind of shiny. And it also is signed, which is cool. This is the first part the first book of a series, and I'm definitely intending on reading the second book when it comes out because I really did like this. So the theme, I believe, for this box was dark romance. So this book is a bit of a romance. I mean, it's a YA fantasy. There's always a bit of a romance in all of those. So there is a romance in here. It ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. So it's mainly about one girl, Violetta, and her brother, whose name I can't remember. Arian. And he has like shadow powers, and it's in a alternate world where people don't like shadow powers. It's a bit religious-y. And their mother, who's not their actual mother, she found them on the side of a road when they were kids. Like, every time his, like, shadow powers come out, she, like, burns his fingers, which is just awful. But his shadow powers, like, emerge, during the day one day when the lord of the land or whatever is coming to take his tithes from their town, and he sees them and then is like, "You're coming with me." But she, of course, won't let her little brother leave without her, so she insists on coming. So they both go to Lake's Edge, where the Lord, his name is Rowan, but he's known as like the Beast of Lake's Edge because it's rumored that he killed his whole family just so that he could be the Lord. Not exactly true. And of course, she ends up falling in love with him, and which, fair. And they're about the same age, even though he's a lord. Like, they're both about, like, 19, 20, I think, is supposed to be their ages. So they find out the truth, which is that as a kid he drowned in the lake, which, it's Lake's Edge, there's a huge lake. But he was given a deal by the Lord Under, who's, like, the devil. And to come back to life, and in return, Rowan promised him anything, because he was, like, 5 years old. So it ended up, like, corrupting the lake, and then it ended up, like, luring the corruption, ended up, like, luring his brother and parents, like, year after year to the lake and drowning them. And he's, like, he himself is infected by it, and it's, like, taking over his body, and they believe that Arian is the only one who can stop it because he has shadow powers. But then, what do you know? Violetta has some weird light powers that can help. And she's actually the one who could stop it, and stuff happens, and I won't spoil the end. So, it ends on kind of a cliffhanger, though. So, I really want to read the next one. It was a pretty good book. And I did really like the romance that they had with Violetta and Rowan. It didn't, like, I think she said that she loved him at the very end, but I can't remember. I can't really remember. It was a while. But yes, it's a very good book. If you like that sort of thing, it is really good. And then the next one is the one I got in the last box. Jadefire Gold by June C.L. Tan. And again, this is a different cover than the normal published version, and the best part about it is, like, it's colored green. Isn't that cool? I've seen, like, metallics, but I've never seen a green one. It's so cool. So, this is, another YA fantasy, but it's based in, like, Chinese mythology. And I really enjoyed this one as well. I don't know if this is going to be part of the series, though. I've not found that out. There's definitely stuff in the very end. Like, there's an epilogue that's not really an epilogue, and it seems like it could lead into another book, so we'll see. If there is, I'm definitely going to read it. I really liked this. So, there's two main characters that, their perspectives switch between the two. Alton is the boy, and then On is the girl, and so in this world, in their empire, magic users are basically cast as witches and burned at the stake, and she has magic powers. So, but she gets outed, and instead of getting burned at the stake, she ends up getting taken to the capital city and learns that her father is like one of the head dudes there. Because she was found like wandering as a child, and her grandmother, who's not a real grandmother, raised her in the desert. And the desert is also like spreading, and it's a corruption basically, kind of the same as that book, and they have to stop it. So Alton, he is the crown prince, but his father, who was the emperor, was assassinated. His mother was killed. They went on the run. His mother was killed. His sister was killed. And he is believed to be dead as well. And he changed his name. His actual name is Jin, I think. And they meet like early on in the book, but they don't stay together, and they don't really know who each other are. But his mission is basically to find the sword, the white jade sword that can stop the corruption from spreading. But he needs the life stealer to do that, who is like a special magic person, who his great-grandfather was. His great-grandfather's the one who started the corruption in the first place. He needs to find the current life stealer so that they can stop it, but he intends to kill them. Because he believes that they're more harmful than good. Except, what do you know? On turns out to be the life stealer. And of course he falls in love with her. So, and they, she finds out that her father's evil, and they end up running away from the palace together, and he's basically been tasked with protecting her. And they find the sword, go back to the palace, things happen. And they end up falling in love, It's a pretty good book. It's actually a pretty easy read, even though it's kind of long. Like, it's thick. It's like 500 pages long. 400. 450. But it is a pretty good book. I really, really enjoyed it. And it only took me like a week to read it, so it's not that bad. And, so I did see on Goodreads that a lot of people were not happy with the ending, that it was like rushed. And I don't know. I mean, sure, I think they skipped a lot of time near the end of it to progress the story along, but I didn't really have an issue with it. And I think everything you needed to be there was there, and everything else just would have been fluff and padding. I think what people wanted was more between On and Alton, and more of their relationship developing and stuff. But, like, he's, like, in love with her from the very beginning, and she's attracted to him from basically the first moment they meet. So I don't really think that it was necessary. They were already into each other very early on. So, like, their relationship doesn't really start until literally the last scene. They don't kiss for the first time until the very last scene. And I think people just wanted more of that, more with them, but it didn't need it. And then the last book, I literally finished this yesterday, is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the first book of the series. This is like my boyfriend's like old beat up copy. He has almost all of the books. I had to buy 2 to finish out the series for us. But I do intend to read the whole series eventually. I liked it. However, my only issue with it is that I've already seen the movie. I've seen quite a lot of the TV show as well, like the old TV show. So I knew the story. I knew it. So I feel like this wasn't as good as it would have been if I didn't know it, if that makes sense. Like, I was talking to my boyfriend, and he was like, yeah. I was like, I'm a little disappointed because I'm not really finding it as funny as I thought I would. And he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, you don't know the story for any of the other books, and that's where it really gets funny. So hopefully I'll really get more into them. Like, I liked it. But I wasn't finding moments where I was like, oh my god, this is hilarious. It's a really good book, though. It is a really good book. It's worth a read. Didn't take me long at all to read it. Because it's like, it looks kind of thicker, but it's got big letters, so there's really not a lot here. So, that's it. I'm done. For now. That's all I've read for now. I will hopefully have many more books done, like 5 more books done. That's my goal. 6 more books done by the end of the month. So I finished 3 more books in November. Technically when I finished December 1st. Today's December 2nd, by the way. Totally forgot to say that. And so one I finished yesterday, December 1st. Today's December 2nd. But calling it November. Okay, so let's get into those first, and then I have a few other books to talk about. So the first book I finished was The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. This is the 6th book in the Chronicles of Narnia. One left. I mean, they're kids' books, so it's not super thrilling for an adult to read them. I kind of don't like them. I honestly don't even remember if I liked The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is probably the most, famous book in the series. I read it so long ago that I can't remember if I liked it or not, but I haven't really liked any of them that I remember, like, what happened. So, I think this is one of those rare things where the movies are better than the books. They add a lot more in the movies. They take out a lot. Because if you don't know, there is a lot in these books that is heavily, like, allegorical for Jesus and Christianity and that stuff. And I personally, I'm not a religious person, so that does not appeal to me. Like, Aslan is basically Jesus. Like, it pretty much almost says that. And they take that out, and for the movies, they take out, like, pretty much all of the allegory, and I really prefer that. I'm not a huge fan of, like, heavily religious allegory in literature. It's just not for me. But this one wasn't as bad. I remember the Voyage of the Dawn Treader was really heavy. This one, a little bit, but not quite as bad. The story is like very simple. It takes place, well, in our world, I think it only takes place like maybe a year after the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and then in Narnia, many, many years. Caspian is in it, but like not really. He's a very old man in it. It's mostly about his son. And Eustace from the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, he is one of the main characters, one of the main children, and his friend Jill. So Pevensies, not in it anymore, like barely even mentioned. The Voyage of the Dawn Treader was their last outing, and it's probably good that they never made any more movies. I think they were planning on it, but I know they were not able to have the rights anymore because I think the estate of C.S. Lewis's his family basically said no. So they were not able to make any more movies. I think that's why. But Voyage of the Dawn Treader, great movie to end on. Just the Pevensey, arc is complete because they were only in 3 of the books, 3 of the 7 books. So, yeah, not bad. And then I believe The Last Battle, that's the last book, and I believe that has Eustace and Jill in it as well. I'm not positive about that though. I don't really know what the story is for that. I'm imagining it's about a battle. Literally, the cover of the book is a unicorn with a bloody horn. So I'm like, that's dark for a kid's book. Alright, so the next book that I read was Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This, I believe, was not, I don't remember if it won, but it was nominated for Goodreads Choice Awards last year for horror, and I can't remember if it won, but it was nominated, I remember that, and that's just how I find my new books now. I go through the Goodreads Choice Awards, the nominees, and just, look at every single one, and I'm like, yep, I want to read that, I want to read that, I want to read that. That's what I did this year, which, by the way, if I get this video up in time, the final voting round for this year's Goodreads Choice Awards is happening right now, so go vote. I can only vote in one category because I only read one of the books that is nominated. I don't read new books very often. So this is it takes place in the 1950s, in Mexico, and it's about a girl, and I don't know if I was pronouncing her name right. In my mind, I have no idea if I was pronouncing her name right. It looks like you pronounce it Noemi. That's how I was pronouncing it. It kind of looks like Naomi, but it's Naemi, or Noemi. So I was pronouncing it Noemi in my head, and I don't know if that's correct. I don't speak Spanish, so the pronunciations of, some of the words that I'm, not very familiar with, I just don't know. Hopefully I was pronouncing it right, and I'm not saying that wrong, but Noemi, that's just how I'm going to say it. Her cousin got married and lives in this creepy house with a English family who kind of racist, which, if you're racist, they're into eugenics, which if you don't know what eugenics is, that's kind of what the Nazis were into. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the elite race. If you're into that, why would you move to Mexico? Why? Just stay where you were, and then you don't have an issue. But whatever. So yeah, her cousin marries into the family, and then her cousin, sends them this letter that's like, help, get me out. Not quite like that, but it's basically rambling, crazy talk. So her father sends her to go investigate what's going on, and the house is creepy, the family is creepy, except for one dude. There's one member of the family that's not creepy, but no spoilers. But I will say that the, twist, I don't know if it was really meant to be a twist, honestly, because it was very obvious what was going on. To me, anyway, I don't know. It just seemed really obvious what was happening to the house, to the family. So it wasn't really surprising. I liked it. I really did like it. It was very, very good. I didn't find it scary at all, but I don't really find books scary. Books don't really scare me. I remember when I was a kid and I read the second Harry Potter book. That scared me for some reason. I don't know why, because creepy snakes. But that scared me. This didn't scare me, like, because I kind of saw what was happening. There's nothing really scary in it, so for a horror book, it didn't really work for me. But for, like, a mystery, it did, because at the very beginning, like, you have no idea what's going on, but then, like, the further you get into it, you're like, okay, I get what's going on. But it was very good. I liked it. It was a good book. I would recommend it. And then the next book that I finished yesterday. And this was kind of at the end of an era kind of a book, but not really. I'll get into that. So, I read Confessor by Terry Goodkind. This is the 11th book, I believe, book in the Sword of Truth series, which is a fantasy series. And it was briefly a TV show, 2 seasons. First season followed the first book, more or less, kind of well. Second season just went off the rails and had nothing to do with the books almost at all. Like, very barely. Some characters, yes, but mostly just no. However, that's how I learned that this book series existed. I saw that. I really liked it at the time. I still owned it on DVD. It is definitely cheesy. It didn't come out that long ago. It was maybe early 2010s, I believe. I want to say. But, a little cheesy. A little on the cheesy side. But anyways, I really liked it. I was, in, like, high school or something. So I really wanted to read it. So I've been reading the series since I was in high school. For over 10 years now. And I finally finished this book, which is supposed to be the end of the series. But it's not, because he kept writing them. However, the way that this book ends is clearly meant to be the end, because there's, like, a wedding, everyone's happy, hooray. But nothing is left at the end to lead to a sequel. However, I own more books, and then there are more books after that I do not yet own. So he kept going. And I will read them. But, basically, I'm not going to even try to explain it's impossible. This is the 11th book. There's way too much. And look how thick it is. It's 700 pages long. I will say that it can get a little repetitive. The author does like to kind of go on about the same things, like, for way longer than he needs to. It's a little rambly at times. He goes on and on about, like, good versus evil quite a lot. Like, we get it, dude. And then there's times when it's, like, the main character, Richard, he will have, like, figured something out, and he won't tell you, the reader. And the other characters will be like, but, like, that can't be possible. Or something. Like, if something doesn't work out, but then he's like, aha, this is, I figured something out that you didn't figure out. And, like, it goes on and on and on. Like, kind of rambly until he finally says what he figured out. And then when he does, it's just like, why couldn't you have just said that? It gets a little annoying at times. For the most part, though, I do really like the series. I liked how it ended. It had a nice ending. But, honestly, for anyone's mental health, I would not recommend getting into this series, because it's so long. It's so long. I think there's, like, 20 books in the series by now. It's just one of those things. It's so long. Yeah. And then there's another book I finished. I've read it on Kindle, and I read it in, like, a day. So, I was going through, the Goodreads, and normally I do read, romance novels every once in a while, and I can read them really quickly. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the way that romance novels are written. They're a little more simplistic than most books. So, I can go through them pretty quickly, and one of the categories for Goodreads is romance. I don't normally put my romance novels I read on my Goodreads just because, like, shame, But There's one that I have seen around quite a lot, like it's been very popular, called The Love Hypothesis. Don't remember the author, but I'll put the cover up. And it is, I believe it started out as Kylo Ren Rey fanfic and then became this, which you can't tell. Reading the book, you can't tell that it was originally fanfiction. I mean, you kind of can, like in some things, because he's like all dark and broody and blah blah blah, and she's like kind of more bubbly and stuff, and that's pretty much it. But it was a really good book. I would very much recommend it. Just be aware I think there's only like one explicit sex scene in it, I think. But I mean, I don't mind that in romance novels. I don't mind that in any novels. It's not something that I care about. But if you're not into that, don't read it or skip that. But it was a very good book. It had a cute little ending. It was one of those like fake relationship trope romance novels where they fake a relationship, but then they end up falling in love with each other, so they don't want to tell each other that they fall in love with each other. But you know, so yeah, I read that one. I think I found one other romance novel maybe, and I'll probably read that one real quick too. They're not hard for me. So let's get into what I'm currently reading. So I'm currently reading 4 books. 5 books, actually. 5 books. Ugh. Okay, so the first book is War and Peace. By who wrote War and Peace? By Leo Tolstoy. Forgot who wrote it for a minute. It's long. I'm listening to it on Audible, and it's literally my longest book that I've ever had on Audible. It's like 60 hours long, and I'm reading it as fast, because you can speed up the reading of it, and I have it basically as fast as I can have it without it sounding dumb, you know, like that high squeaky voice. And it's still like so long. I have like 30 hours left in it. And it's very hard to understand, because you know it's Russian. It's translated from Russian. All the names in it are Russian. It's about a few different families during the Napoleon era in Russia, and like basically their trials and tribulations and everything. And it is so hard for me to tell who is who, because there's so many characters and they all have Russian names, and it is so hard for me to tell who is who. Some of the people, like, I'm like, okay, I know who this person is, and other people I'm like, who the hell is this? So yeah, I am not trying to read this or listen to it in any time frame. I'm just like, every once in a while I'll listen to whatever. Like if I'm going to work, I'll listen to it. I'm just trying to get it done in little bite-sized chunks, because yeah. And then the second book that I'm like kind of not really trying to finish in any time frame is Ninth House. That is by Leigh Bardugo, I think is her name. And I'm reading that on Kindle, and honestly, Kindle books for me, sometimes they take me a little bit longer, just because I prefer a physical book. So Kindle books, it's not my preferred media of book. So I'm just trying to get it done. I think I'm like 20% of the way done with it, so it's not bad. I'm like a quarter of the way. And then, so I will talk about these because I think I believe I talked about this in my last video, but I'm again doing the challenge, the reading challenge in my book club on Goodreads, and I have 10 books. I actually have all of the prompts, all of them filled. I'm going to do them all. Fingers crossed. So these next 3 books are part of that. but I have started them. So the first one is Midnight in Chernobyl. And this is a nonfiction book. It's about Chernobyl, about what happened and the aftermath. And I have not gotten very far into it. I am like, that's how far I am into it. And this looks really long, but the book itself actually ends like here. So all of this is like acknowledgments and the glossary and notes and everything. So this is the book. This is not. So it actually ends at like page 370, but it keeps going for like another 150 pages or something ridiculous. But Chernobyl interests me a lot. The HBO miniseries, I have seen that multiple times. It's so good. Watch it. It is so good. And this, although I know that that is not fully accurate, the miniseries, there is one character that was not real. She was kind of made to just be all of the scientists who kind of helped, because there was too many, basically, to put in the TV show. But that really interests me, and this was, I saw this around like 2 years ago for the 2019 Goodreads Choice Awards. A lot of people were talking about this, and I'm finally reading it. And the prompt that it is for is like a little funny, and I'm not going to talk about that yet. But so this I have to finish in a week. By next Wednesday, I have to be done with this, and it's long. So we'll see. So the second one is The Year of the Witching, and that's an Audible, so that one won't get me. Well, it's not too bad. It's only about 10 hours long to begin with. Not bad at all. I can totally finish that in a week. It is about, it's about like witchy stuff. I think it is kind of a horror book. And it's very like Puritan witch trials vibe going on. I don't fully know the plot yet. I didn't really read the synopsis before I started it. I was just like, ooh, witches, and the cover drew me in. So, and I got it. It was free on Audible as well. So I grabbed it. And then the third one, or the last book that I am currently reading is on Kindle, and I'm not into it. It is The Divine Comedy by Dante. It's like an epic poem, and I'm not really hugely into poems in general, let alone epic ones. And it's long. It's very, very long. So if you don't really know what it is, it's basically the void, or the, what's the word? It's about the travels through, the layers of hell and through purgatory and stuff to get to heaven, I think, is the main goal at the end, is to get to heaven. I don't know. I'll get through it. I'm not going to promise that I'm going to understand any of it. It is for this little thing right here. So, not because I want to read it. Alright, so those are the books that I'm currently reading. Let's get into my prompts, because it's fun. It's fun. We'll see if I actually finish any of them. I mean, I know I'll finish some of them. I want to finish all of them, though. The first 3 prompts are always generally the same. The first one is to read a book that was published in that month, so December for this month. And the one that I chose was The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. That is part of my 100 books. And I have the audiobook for that. And according to to Goodreads, it was published in December. But it's kind of one of those old books, so it's like, I'm not positive. But according to Goodreads, it was. And then the next one is to read a book with the title or author starting with D. The Divine Comedy works for both of those, Dante and Divine. And then the third one is to read a book with 8 letters in the words or in the title. That is one for every month because there's 8 letters in December. So there's one that's, however many letters are in the month translates to the title. And I'm doing The Trial by Franz Kafka. More Russian literature. I have the audiobook for that as well, and it's much shorter. I think it's more around the 10-hour mark, which is generally how many hours almost all of my books are. The next one is to read a book with all of the letters of winter in the title and or author's name, and that is The Year of the Witching. That works for that. The next one is to read a book set during the festival season or with a red and or green cover. I don't have any books that work for the festival setting, but I do have one with a red and green cover, and that is For the Wolf by Hannah F. Whitten. This is one of the books that I very recently added to my want to read. It is one of the nominees for the Goodreads Choice Award, although I don't think it made it to the second round, but it was in the first round. And it's kind of like a Little Red Riding Hood spin book, which I ended up adding quite a lot of books to my to be read that were like fairy tales that are kind of different. So I got a lot of those coming. The next one's kind of funny. Okay, so Taylor Swift's birthday, that's the prompt. So read a book with any of the words highlighted in bold in the title. And then it gives you quite a few of Taylor Swift's song titles. And I literally went to my want to read books, looked up every single word, and only one book fit. And that was Midnight in Chernobyl, the untold story of the world's greatest nuclear disaster. So story for love story. That's the only one I got. So it's not very Taylor Swifty, but it works. It fits the prompt. So the 7th one is to read a book with a green cover. And that is this. So if you are unaware of the Pillars of the Earth series, this is the prequel. So the series itself always takes place in the same town. It's usually about a cathedral. It's usually very cathedral based, but I don't mind the religious stuff in this book, usually because he does it so well. So the first book, Pillars of the Earth, takes place, I believe, in I want to say like the 1100s, 1200s, something like that. And then the second book, which is World Without End, which I very recently listened to the audiobook for, that takes place in the 1400s. Cause that has a lot to do with the Black Death and all of that fun stuff. And then there is a third book, Column of Fire. I don't know when that one takes place. I have not even really looked at it. I own it, but I haven't really looked at it. And then this is the most recently published book, but this is a prequel. So this takes place in the 900s. So very, very early on. It takes place in England. It is a long book. It's 900 pages long. This is going to be my all-month book. I'm not going to try to read this in a week. I'm going to just try to finish it by the end of the month. So, these are really good books. They're very well written. I've read 2 of the 4, and I've enjoyed both of them. And there's a mini-series on the Pillars of the Earth and a mini-series on World Without End as well. Both don't fit the don't follow the book completely. Like World Without End, I noticed the most dissimilarities in it, mostly because I just finished the book and then I watched the miniseries and I was like, they changed so much. The Pillars of the Earth miniseries, I'm not positive about because it's been a while since I read the book. It's been a while since I saw the miniseries, so I'm not sure about that one. But they're very good books. They're very good miniseries. The 8th prompt is to read a book with one of the following words in the title: heart, diamond, spade, club, king, queen, jack. You get it. Card suits, basically. The only one that fit for me was Inkheart. I love Cornelia Funk. I've read so many of her books, but I've never read Inkheart. I want to read that whole series. Inkheart, Inkspell, and Ink Death. And so I'm going to start that. And then the next one is to read a book that has been nominated for the awards, the Goodreads Awards, for any year. So I'm reading Ariadne, which is by Jennifer Saint. And that is, it's nominated this year, but I haven't read it yet. And it, I believe, is like a retelling of the story of Ariadne. She's a character from Greek mythology, and I don't remember her story all that well, but I'm sure it's very sad and depressing because most stories about women from Greek mythology are. And then the last one is to read a book that you've been meaning to read all year. So I'm reading The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, and this is the second book, or the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, because I don't think she's going to continue it. The Handmaid's Tale, I'm surprised she wrote this one, is mostly probably because of the Hulu series, because The Handmaid's Tale was written in like the 80s. It's a very good book, though. I've read it. It is very good. So I am expecting this one to be just as good. So those are my plans for the month. I know this was mostly a book-heavy video, not so much on stitching. I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try. We'll see. So yeah, that's basically all I have right now for you this month. I will see you at the beginning of the year. You know, we got a brand new year. Hopefully this year will be better than the last few have been. We'll see. Alright, so I hope you have a very good Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, any other December holidays that I'm not remembering. Anything you celebrate for the month of December. I hope you have a great one and a good Happy New Year and happy birthday to me. I just gotta put that in there. My birthday is this month. Yay. So, right. I will see you next time. Goodbye.